on me. Now take everything that I have to spew out, right? And I didn't want to be held accountable for my words. Because it's like, understand that it's coming from pain. Understand that this is where it's coming from. And you made me say it. You brought me this pain. But at the end of the day, it's like, I need to hold myself to a standard. And I can't just attack because I'm being hurt unless I'm fighting for my life. But in a situation where you're in a relationship that maybe you got cheated on, this is not a situation where you're fighting for your life because you can just always leave. You know? And then like I was saying, some people, they'll validate the things that you're doing. So you need to also watch who's around you when you're in that phase, because they'll tell you everything that you're saying is all right. They'll double down. Yes, girl, say that. He was so wrong. You got to be accountable for yourself and have your own moral code. It's not tit for tat. Your own morals is not worth it. You changing as a person is not worth you going into a villain season. So sometimes you just have to simply, get comfortable not talking. Sometimes get comfortable in silence, like until you really feel your feelings out and know which route you want to take and know if you're strong enough to stay in a situation and, work for it to go into a better direction, or you're strong enough to leave. But abusing someone and becoming a full-time villain is really not the answer. That's what I'm learning, Self-love is a big part of this whole thing, right? Because if you boil it all down and if you genuinely loved yourself, one, there's only so much harm you can take, right? There's only so much victim mentality that you will live in, right? There's only so much victim mentality that you will live in, right? And if you loved yourself, you would know when to walk away. You will know when to stay. You will know what to say. You wouldn't go too much outside of yourself. Because I can admit a lot of times I sat in situations because I felt like there was going to be nothing better for me. So I allowed people to hurt me. And I had this thing where I felt used to the hurt. I'm like, oh, I'm so used to being hurt. This is okay. Oh, I can handle this. We'll just fight about it. I'll yell about it. I'll cry about it. And then I'll just stay where I am because I'm comfortable. But then now that I'm in this mode of reflection and accountability and acceptance, I realized like a lot of that stuff was me, and me not loving myself and me needing so much validation from another person, to the point where it's like I felt like if I convinced you to stop cheating or stop doing me bad, it's like, good, now you proved that I was worth something. When it's like I should have known that I was worth something the whole time on my own, And also, you need to make sure that you're ready for what you're asking for, So in these relationships, right, you come in, you're wanting a certain thing and you can't handle it, Like, for example, you come in, you're like, oh, I want a husband. I want this. I want that. Right. And let's say you're still in your villain era. Like, let's move forward. Let's say you get out of one relationship that you were the victim. You turned the villain. You're still the villain. You get in a new relationship and you want a husband. You want a wife. Right. But you're still in your villain mode. So you can't even accept it. So at the end of the day, being the villain is never really the answer, because it's like, you're going to stop yourself from future blessings, from the future things that you want, because you're still holding on to the walls that you built, the survival techniques that you had to use while you were in your victim state. I feel like it's a lot. It's so much. And like all these like awarenesses have just been coming to me like way after the fact. And I think that that's hurtful sometimes too, when you learn these things after, where it's like you look back on some relationships and like, man, I could have had a good relationship, or especially like the ones that you get after you've been hurt, the relationships you get into after you've been hurt. Sometimes those could have been like potentially good relationships, but if you're coming in your villain mentality, You know, you might hurt some people and hurt yourself because you're not ready for what you're asking for. You know, and you also have to be careful of the things that you say about yourself, because you'll force yourself to have to live up to the definition of yourself that you gave. So for example, if you talk about yourself and you're like, nobody can mess with me, I got a bad attitude, I'll tell anybody off, I'll beat anybody up, then you're gonna have to live up to that. Whenever a situation comes, you don't want to deal with it calmly because you have to live up to these things that you said about yourself. So it's like, talk about yourself positively. Like, even if you're not there yet, like, really learn to talk about yourself positively. I'm calm, I'm happy, I handle situations well, I am emotionally mature, you know, I use my words wisely. Things like that. That's how you really need to speak about yourself, because anything less, you're going to force yourself to live up to that. It's going to become your identity, you know? And like I said, learn from me, from my pain. And this is exactly why I'm doing this. So that if anybody is feeling some kind of way, you're coming into like your villain era, pay attention to it. Notice how you're talking to people. Notice your agitations, how quick you might get to anger. Notice these things and then do something about it, right? Take up meditation, get a therapist, get a journal. Try to get down to the deeper levels of your issues, right? So like, for example, you're in a relationship and anything your partner does just agitates you. Like, they breathe, you're upset. They look at you, you know, you're upset. Don't just live in that and be like, this is how it is, or he annoys me. Because first off, like, if that's your relationship and the person's annoying you, any little thing that you do doesn't sound fun, right? And what you need to start doing is unearthing the situation and getting deeper and seeing what the real problems are and fix them before it's too late. I feel like nowadays we're in a time where everybody just throws love away, right? For very selfish reasons. You can be with someone that's really great, right? And you're picking them apart because you're looking at what somebody else is doing, someone else's relationship, or you're listening to people online telling you, okay, if somebody's not serving you, just get rid of them. And then everything is just like how people are treating you and what they're doing for you. And it's like you just want a bunch of servants around you. But it's just like, are you serving? Are you serving? As human beings, I think that we all should be serving each other. Because if we're all serving each other, we're all taken care of. But of course, obviously, the given, yes, you take care of yourself, especially your mental health and different things like that. But to just think everybody needs to be around you to serve you, and if they're not, you get rid of them is wild. And especially like when you love somebody and, you know, there's just little things, right? We're always thinking that we're on to the next, right? We're always thinking the grass is greener. Somebody's liking our pictures online or giving us little attention or telling us what we deserve or what we should have. And we're sitting there and we're believing them. So we're taking our partner who sits there with us through our ups and downs, our goods, our bads. And we're saying, well, somebody else online told me that I deserve the world. But baby, that person wasn't giving you the world. They didn't jump in to come and do it. So it's like we need to have discernment to know what you fight for to keep and, you know, the things that you let go. But I'm going to get into comfort zones, right? Because even within this topic of victim to villain, we have comfort zones, right? And sometimes being the victim or being the villain is like a part of our comfort zone, right? Because it's like, if you are the victim, you kind of feel like people can always feel sorry for you. You know, you always have a sad story to tell, like, poor me. But then if you're the villain, you can find comfort in that hard armor, right? Where I'm the boss, I can fight for myself, I can do what I need to do. But you really have to be careful of that, right? Because does that mean that you're happy? Sometimes we're just so used to being behind this mask and playing a character that we don't even know what true happiness is. We don't even know what we like anymore. We're so used to being fed things. This is what I like. This is who I am. This is what I'm interested in. Where it's like, what are my true interests? How do I even find that? How do I even meditate? How do I even get to my deeper self? And some of our comfort zones is rock bottom. And you got to pay attention to that. Because if your comfort zone is rock bottom, you usually like it because you don't have to worry about falling anymore. So sometimes we like to be in negative and toxic situations because it's like it can't get no worse, right? Even when we see ourselves going up, sometimes you start to get this fear like, oh my gosh, it is too good to be true. Like, let me be careful. And then sometimes self-sabotage comes in, right? Self-sabotage comes in and thrusts you right back down. It thrusts you right back down to rock bottom where you're comfortable. Where you're like, at least I don't have to worry about falling. At least, like, I don't mind crying. Because some of us don't mind crying, right? Some of us think that the worst is what we deserve. So sometimes we go into a situation and we're thinking of the worst outcome off the top just to prepare ourselves for heartbreak. And I'm speaking of myself. Like, I am the queen of doing that. Or let's say I used to be the queen of doing that. We're working on speaking positive. I hope to really see the evolution of like my positive thinking and speaking as I do this podcast. Like, this is the first episode. I've only been in therapy for like a month. So I would love to even watch my own growth to see how my, talking change and my thinking changes. Because yeah, I definitely used to be the queen of that, where I'll go into a situation, even entering a room, and I'm picturing in my head everything that can go wrong so that I'm prepared for the ill treatment. Like my armor is up and everything. And it's like sometimes like, why can't you go into the room thinking everybody's going to like you? Why can't you go into the room thinking everything is going to go right? So these are all things that we have to be cognizant of and work on. The next thing I want to talk about is leaving breadcrumbs. So leaving breadcrumbs is kind of like, it has to do with communication in a relationship. And even though I'm talking about relationships because my victim to villain situation had to do with the relationship, right? Being cheated on and going from the victim in that to the villain, where I became the aggressor, the abuser in the situation. There is also other things, like the communication part, right? So there were other things I was upset about. Like I would do what I call leaving breadcrumbs, right? Where I'm trying to lead you to what I want you to do. I'm trying to lead you to what I need from you instead of just saying it, right? And when I say just saying it, tone matters, right? In communication, tone matters. So like sometimes having nice, healthy conversations in relationships can go such a far way. But a lot of us, we like to think everyone should know. And we like to equate the level of love that we think our partner has for us based off of what they do for us, right? So it's like, if you loved me, you would have got me flowers. That has nothing to do with love. That's just a way of showing the love, right? It's a way of like some admiration or something like that. But that does not mean this person does not love you, right? So we put all these parameters on love and then we get disappointed when the person doesn't live up to it exactly the way that we imagined it in our head, right? Even though, yes, I do believe that your partner should do things, right, that they know you would like, whatever. But in order for them to still know that, if they haven't been with you for a long time or whatever, if you haven't explained it to them, you have to tell them. So back to what I was saying with the breadcrumbs, like the things that I would do is like, I would leave like little hints or clues, or I would say things that I felt was very obvious to what I want, So I'm like, okay, I want you to do this. So